This is going to be a review of my first ever digital SLR, the Nikon D70. Now I'm going to do this one-handed because I need to hold the other camera, the PowerShot S100 that I'm recording this video with the other hand, otherwise things are going to get very blurry. This is my second time today recording this video, and the focus was, well, let's just say it was not usable. Anywho, let's just start up here on the top of the back plate. You have your bracketing, your drive mode, and I'm going to go into a video after this one, probably will be uploaded in the next couple of days, and that's going to show you how I've achieved some of the photos that I was taking for the photography update video. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and see it. You'll see some of the photos that I've taken, and I'll go ahead and show you how I've done them, how I've achieved them. So, bracketing, your drive mode, playback, your menu, which doubles as your ISO switch in your in record mode. Anything in yellow is effective during playback, and anything in white is effective during recording, image recording. This camera does not have the ability to do video. So you have your ISO, which also doubles as your thumbnail switch, white balance, which is your help/image protect, and your quality, which triples actually as magnification and an enter switch. Over here on this side, we have the trash can for deleting images. This is the focus point lock switch, so that once you have your focus point selected, you won't accidentally select another one. Over here is the directional pad, your typical up, down, left, and right, which is used for navigating the menus and selecting your focus points. Autofocus, auto exposure lock up here. Your rear control dial is right here. This door is where you can find your compact flash memory card slot. The little green light that lit up was the reading light. Up here on top, we have our mode dial. Now, a lot of people who would pick up a digital SLR for the first time would probably shoot in fully automatic mode. That's what this is. Or they might choose various scene modes. You've got portrait, landscape, macro, sports, night portrait, or night landscape, I'm sorry, then there's night portrait. But I only use manual, aperture, shutter, or program, which are essentially manual exposure modes. I usually never touch the automatic settings. Over here on the right, you have your metering, your exposure compensation, and a light. If I switch the camera on, you can see that we can light up things in a nice bright green color. Now I've got the lens cap on the lens here, which is why the shutter speed is shown as low as opposed to a typical value. You've got your, just like I just said, you have your shutter speed, you have your aperture, your focus mode, your drive mode, your metering, your physical focusing points, your quality settings, your white balance, and your remaining images. You also have a little indicator up here, this little musical note that tells you whether or not audio is enabled. Around the front of the camera, we have the pop-up flash, which also doubles as your flash exposure compensation button. You have your lens release switch. You have your focusing for the body, which is autofocus or manual. And we'll get to the lens in a moment. And there's really nothing on this side. Not much here on the bottom except for a tripod mount and your battery compartment. Now, in regards to the lens, excuse me, the lens on this camera is the Nikkor AFS 18 to 70 millimeter 3.5 to 4.5 G ED lens. This is primarily meant for DX bodies such as the D70, D80, D90, D7000. Pretty much any camera in the Nikon lineup, past or present, that does not sport an FX label, which basically means it's a full frame. So this lens will not work on a full frame body. So we have our zoom ring up here in the front. The nice thing about this lens is that it does not suffer from zoom creep, which basically means that the lens can fall down under its own weight, under the weight of its own internal components, and this can happen whether the lens is facing straight up or straight down. But I've already tested this, and the lens thankfully does not suffer from any zoom creep. And you also have, next to the DX logo here, you have, it's still on, you've got trouble focusing here. Come on. Now, if you could see that, hang on, let me see if I can get this focusing to work. And okay, there we go. Now I'm going to do it again. So here we have your focusing window. And you can hear that the focusing is very quick and quiet. You'll also notice that the end element does not rotate, which is nice if you're using a polarizing filter. I'm not. What I'm using is a Rocketfish UV filter, just as standard protection for the lens itself, but I would like to get into using a polarizer. I've actually come up with some photos of mountains. I just came back from a trip, and I got some photos of mountains that looked rather hazy, and I told myself that they would definitely look better with a polarizer. So at some point I'd like to pick one of those up for the D70. Now, image quality. Image quality is just fabulous. Now, unfortunately, the screen on this is so small that you really can't see anything as far as details are concerned. So I'm not even going to bother to show you the image quality results, because they're really better. They're really better seen once you blow them up on a computer or on a television set. Oh, that reminds me, we never went over the ports. You've got two doors here. Try to get one of these open here. Oops. Hold it open. Give me just a second to try to rearrange some things. There we go. Okay, so you've got your DC in up top, and below that you've got your TV out. And then, below that, this one's always a fun one to get off. Hang on a second. There we go. So what we have here is a standard mini USB plug. And that's what I've been using to offload photos from the camera to my Mac. The D70 was old enough, it was released in 2004, that they didn't have an HDMI port. In fact, I don't think any Nikon bodies until the D90 had an HDMI port, and that's because the D90 was the first DSLR to record video. So what do I think of this camera? I would say 9.5 out of 10. Why don't I give it a perfect 10? There are two main reasons. Actually, three. First of all, if I go through my focus points here, one, two, three, four, you've only got a 5-point system. So that's one thing. Another thing is no weatherproofing. Now, you have to give them credit for the time that this camera came out. It was certainly spectacular. And I'm not saying it's not. It is a truly capable camera. It is a very fast camera. It produces wonderful images. I'm just being nitpicky here. So you've got your autofocus points are a little bit small. The other thing, little bit, there are too few of them for my taste. I just wish that there were a couple more, you know, maybe an additional 4 or 5 more to create a 9-point system. The other thing is weather resistance. I was out taking some photos on boats, on a boat, while I was on my trip, and I was in the middle of the boat to avoid the camera getting splashed, and I got some great shots even from looking through the windshield of the boat. But at the same time, I feel like if this body had any amount of weather resistance, that I could have gotten some better shots in some circumstances. And then finally, the third one is there's no battery grip. And there are some portrait shots that I took, and the trouble is that if you're doing portrait shots, it is a lot more comfortable sometimes to have an external grip. But unfortunately, they didn't release one for the D70, at least not officially from Nikon. So other than that, and again, that's just being nitpicky. This is truly a fabulous camera. I absolutely love it. It is a lot better than any of the point-and-shoots I've ever used. It's a lot faster. It's actually a lot more solid. It feels a lot more solid. You can only compose through the viewfinder. You cannot compose using the rear LCD. A lot of DSLRs have what is called live view now. This does not have it. I actually consider that a plus for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have mild cerebral palsy, and as a result, when it comes to holding just a compact camera out in front for a longer period of time, trying to frame your shot, especially for longer exposures, slower shutter speeds, that can be problematic. Whereas if you have this camera in a much more natural position closer to your eye, I found that even without, let's go back to the lens for just a second. You will see that there's no vibration reduction facility, which is image stabilization. This lens does not have it, but I found that 90% of the time I don't need it at all. I've come up with some really fantastic shots just framing through the viewfinder, and really I can't even put it into words. Again, when I go into, I'm going to have another video up on how I've achieved some of the shots that I put up in my photography update video again. And when I do that, I'll show you some more of the shots and how you know, like I said, how I achieved them. But composing through the viewfinder, I honestly would not want to do it any other way. Because you can actually, the way it works in a digital SLR is light comes in through the lens, up through a pentamirror, which is located underneath the flash. In fact, here I'll show you. See that little triangle right there? That's where the pentamirror is located. And the pentamirror will take the light from the lens, bounce it off, receive it from the mirror that's in here. That's actually why the cameras, DSLRs in general, are so heavy, is because of the mirror box. And project it through the viewfinder, and what that does is that allows you to see exactly what you're going to capture. It's not a reproduction. It's not some digital a reproduction. This is literally what you see is what you get, and I absolutely love that. I don't think I'm ever going to want to, you know, do anything else. Anyway, D70, 9.5 out of 10. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.